Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Aaron Trevino here, and we have a terrific guest. We have Zach Ginn from Flip with Rick. What's going on, Zach?
What's up, man? How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine this Saturday.
Sweet.
Absolutely. No, I know we'd had this in the works for a little bit, so it's great to see you, and I'm glad to have you on.
I'm ready, man. I'm whatever you want, I'm ready to give.
Okay, very good, very good. So for those of us who aren't too familiar with you, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so basically I'm Zach Ginn. I am a real estate investor, wholesaler, flipper, whatever you want to do in real estate, that's what I do. I love it so much, guys. I'm 21 years old. I started this business at 17 years old. Basically, a quick synopsis of my story is I started at 17 years old and I didn't know anything about real estate wholesaling. My dad did a little bit of it, but basically I tried to get him to teach me everything. He told me no, do it yourself if you really want to learn it. So basically in high school, I was a high school wrestler and I started sticking bandit signs out. I had about 300 bucks in my bank account. I was working as a bag boy at that time. I hated my job and I basically just started doing bandit signs. If you don't know what bandit signs are those little yellow signs you see on the road. Usually if you're in a metro market, you can see them. We buy houses or we buy ugly houses with a phone number on it. That's what I did. I spent every single penny I had to my name doing that. Uh, Fast forward, got my first deal, made about $25,000 on a wholesale deal as a 17-year-old kid in high school. Before I graduated high school, made about $100,000 while still wrestling in high school. Had a fun time doing that. And fast forward to now, actually till after high school. So I went to college, got a full ride scholarship to a pretty good university here in Florida, and wholesaled virtually in my dorm. And then I came back here, and then I started working with Rick. And basically, I run his entire operations. On the wholesaling side, we run the biggest REI operation on the Treasure Coast here in Florida, and sky's the limit here. So that's my story.
Wow, how about that? So it almost sounds like, your dad basically said, hey, it's entirely up to you, kind of the route you want to take in terms of investing. It sounds like, was there anyone else that kind of inspired you, or is this just fully from you to do this?
It's me working a minimum wage bag boy job that I seriously hated, and I had no other option. And I couldn't work that little 9 to 5 thing. I hated it. It made me scrub toilets all day. That was my main motivation and factor of it. And I basically had nowhere else to go. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So the Bandit Signs, it sounds like you spent, a couple $100 or whatever amount of money you had from there. After that, were calls coming in, or what were you specifically doing to kind of get those deals across the finish line?
yeah, so basically most real estate investors and wholesalers I work with, they take around maybe 3 to 4 months to get their first deal. For me, I got my first deal in 2 weeks, which is way too early for the average person. I think I just got lucky. Always been blessed. So I say whoever helped me out there, but I got a deal my first 2 weeks. Then about a month later, I got my second deal. The calls kept going in. I was very lucky. So apparently, wherever I'll stick my bandit signs, I went to high school wrestling tournaments in the summer, and I just stuck them outside the high schools. And I just got lucky, and I found a very, very good zip code, and just ran with it.
How about that? And I know you kind of mentioned, you got that great scholarship to a good school in Florida, and you were wholesaling virtually. Could you kind of explain what wholesaling is and how you're able to do it from your computer?
Yeah, so I got a full ride scholarship, which means they paid for my dorm, tuition, basically everything, and I got a little money also on top of that for most things. So I basically I went to school for completely free. The only problem is I had some money. I didn't really bring my car with me just because I didn't need it, just because of the school it was. But I didn't really have a car to go on appointments, and Gainesville is just not a good real estate investing market. It's a terrible wholesaling market. So I couldn't go physically to those, and I knew my backyard so well in that market. I knew what zip codes worked within it, and I found some guys talking about virtual wholesaling. So as you know, wholesaling, if you guys don't know that, it's basically the art of getting a property under contract through a motivated seller at a deep, deep, deep discount, and then finding it for a cash buyer and making a little arbitrage on the middle of that. The only difference between virtual is you actually do everything over the phone. So what I did, besides actually meeting a seller in person and getting a contract signed, is I talked to the seller. I couldn't do any Bandit Signs. So what I did was I cold called. So I started cold calling, had somebody do skip tracing, cold call, found a motivated seller, talked to them over the phone. They always told me, hey, when are you going to come by? I said, well, the way my business actually works, I actually don't go by the property and make it very easy and very simple for you. What we do is we actually buy the property sight on scene. I actually don't go to the property, and we get it done all through the phone. And I might have my partner there. He might go then take pictures, but you're basically dealing with me, and it's no hassle. And usually they're okay with that. Negotiate over the phone, build a rapport, and lock it up using either DocuSign or Dot Loop. And then I just find a cash buyer as my partner to go through it, and then I make the profit from there.
Very good. Could you also explain what skip tracing is and kind of how it plays into this process?
Yeah, so skip tracing is a term used by detectives and basically police officers to find the whereabouts of a person. So us in a real estate investing niche, we basically flip that on someone. So us as a real estate investor, we want to find the whereabouts and the actual information of a motivated seller. So there's lots of motivations I go for, looking for someone that would possibly be interested in selling the property for a deep discount. Usually I do a certain amount of lists. So for example, my best list used to be code violations. So if you don't know what code violations are, the code enforcement department will go around throughout the city and look for issues on properties that aren't deemed good. So there's mold on the property, a roof's caving in, most of the grass is overgrown. And what they do is they report that, and then they start fining the person money. And usually the person can't pay the money. That's why they're not cutting the grass. And it becomes a huge problem, and they start to become motivated. So it's a public list. You got an email to me basically every week from my local county. It was good. I got the list. I said 123 Main Street, John Smith. But the problem is, how do I get their phone number? How do I get in contact with them? I can't send mail. So what I did is I use a skip tracing company. I always use batch leads. That's just who I use. And you basically pay about 13 to 14 cents per lead to find their phone numbers. You get 3 phone numbers, and you basically call from there and find them, start a conversation.
Okay, very good. So it kind of sounds like you're being able to vet these people, vet these deals. If you wouldn't mind explaining, if you could kind of go through your first deal, how you found it, kind of the intricacies of the deal and the end result.
Yeah, I'd love to. I always love talking about my first deal. It always puts a smile on my face. It always gets me jacked up for just doing more deals. But yeah, so basically what happened was I stuck to Bandit Sign, had a wrestling tournament, went back to school, and I didn't really say this before, but I went to basically in high school, I just took full-time college classes. So I had like a college schedule in high school, last 2 years of high school. So I went to class like maybe 3 hours a day. So it's not a standard high school. So I got a call. I left the class because it was a college class. You're allowed to do that, not in high school, but I left it. Got a call from a dude saying he needed to sell his property. He was moving out of state and had so many repairs. And he just saw my sign out of the road, and he decided to give me a call. And I said, hey, that's great. Is there a date and time I can go meet you? He's like, well, can you meet me in an hour? And I had class, and I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let me go. So I went to go meet the guy at his property. Again, I was 17 years old, so I couldn't get the contract signed legally in the state of Florida. So my dad had to go with me. He was basically as my partner, and he actually had to sign the contract for me, just because if you're a minor, you can't do that. But so I negotiated with him. So basically, the property needed a lot of work. I didn't know a thing about real estate. I was a bag boy, 17-year-old bag boy kid. Like, I didn't know a thing about real estate. So looking back at it, there was like a little bit of roof leaks. There was like issues just with the stucco on the outside of the house. It needed complete change on the laminate, some of the tile, the grout was all messed up. I didn't know anything about anything, but all I knew was I had to get the lowest price possible, and don't say the offer first. So basically talked to the guy. The only thing I basically knew pretty well, just being a bag boy, was how to talk to people and how to be just a nice person. So just talked about him and his kids and his grandkids, talked about fishing, something I love to do, and built that rapport with him. And basically at the end of it, I just said, hey, how much do you need to sell this property for? And he said, And I knew in my head, I could sell this to a cash buyer for $100,000 all day. Like all day I could sell this thing for $100,000. And I say, how much do you need to sell it for? Because I was going to offer him like $80,000. And he said, thought about it for a second. He said, really probably need to sell this thing for like $60,000. And my like eyes just shot like I started like shivering. I was like, oh my gosh, can we sell for $60,000? I could make like $20,000 on this. And me being stupid, I was like, I went a little further. I was like, I don't know. Can you do 55,000? And he was like, sure. And so we got signed at $55,000, and we found a cash buyer for around 75, and we made a nice little profit on that one. Rick had to sign the contract on that one, but it was a fun one.
Okay. How about that? How about that? So it seems like, you've done quite a few deals since then. Could you also, I know you kind of explained about what wholesaling is, but could you kind of explain subject to?
Yeah, so I recommend that nobody does subject to unless they at least are making $100,000 per year. That's just what I recommend, like getting like deep into that subject to niche. It's very complicated, and you really need to have a really good grasp in your wholesaling business. It's something where I'm making 6 figures a year in real estate wholesaling. Now I want to add something else to make 6 figures per year. I recommend you get a nice base going. But that being said, I'd love to talk about subject to because we're in very interesting times doing it. So subject to is basically buying a property subject to the existing financing or mortgage on it. Now, me explaining this for 10 minutes, you're not going to wrap your head around it like instantly, but it's something you can kind of understand. So the easiest way I can say, first of all, I'm not a lawyer, not a CPA, financial advisor, so don't take my advice for granted. But you can buy properties with the seller's financing in place, which means, let's say you, Aaron, I'm trying to buy your property from you, and you have a mortgage right now for $100,000, and you just bought it last year, and you did an FHA 3%, right? So you have about $100,000 as your mortgage, and you're paying $500 per month in your mortgage. Traditional real estate always goes is you list the property for $105,000, you sell it, you give everything to the realtors, and you basically walk away maybe with $1,000 to $2,000 if you're lucky. Real estate investors, us wholesalers, we want to lock that contract up for about $70,000, $60,000. Which Aaron, you will never do because you'd be owing $40,000 at the table. And let's say your property now has issues. So maybe the thing's worth $90,000 and you owe $100,000 on it. You'll owe money at the closing table, which you don't want to do. So here it becomes a huge problem because a realtor can't solve the problem and a real estate investor can't solve the problem. The true only problem that you could solve it is doing a short sale, which is extremely painful. It's heart-wrenching. It gets on your credit. Like, it looks terrible on you. It's almost as bad as declaring bankruptcy. So our solution, so nobody does that, it doesn't hurt their credit. They don't have to go through the entire arduous process of going through a short sale, is I just buy the property from them. I give you, Aaron, let's say I give you $5,000, and I just take over your financing. So you shift the deed over into my name. You still have the debt in your name. And I basically give you the $5,000, and the house is mine, and I'm responsible for paying your mortgage. So the way that I make money on that is, since your payments are $500, which is, this is all numbers off the top of my head, it's probably not equivalent. But what I do is I put a renter in there, and I make maybe $400 to $500 per month in arbitrage on that one, and just make money till I'm paying down the mortgage. Basically, I control a house for $5,000, and you can make $5,000 to $6,000 per year in profit from just, it's 100% ROI.
Sure.
That's it.
So I guess that's kind of what's kind of the appeal of subject to as opposed to just strictly wholesaling?
Well, you're solving problems for deals that aren't going to be wholesale deals. You have certain sellers that can't list the property, like I've said, because the thing's worth less than what their actual mortgage is, and they'd have to owe money. So that's the biggest appeal for the seller. Now, the biggest appeal for us real estate investors is it's amazing. Like, you buy traditional rental real estate, you're making 15% if you are extreme, like if everything goes right. The renter pays on time every single month, and they're amazing, and like it's perfect. There's no issues, repairs, there's never issues with repairs, and it's perfect. That's 15%. That's probably, I mean, you're in Texas, so that's 15% here, there. That's amazing. For me, I don't like that. 15% is not a lot for me. I can make 20% in the stock market. But what if I could spend $5,000 paying you for your property, and I can make $5,000 in profit, and the equity builds? I'm making 100% ROI, plus I get equity buildup and appreciation. It's 15% versus 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a great way to look at it. So I know you'd also mentioned, Gainesville, the wholesale market wasn't so hot. Where are you specifically living now?
I'm in Port Saint Lucie, Florida, born and raised,
Okay.
north of Palm Beach.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, for those of us who aren't too familiar with Florida, kind of explain where that is.
Yeah, so north of Palm Beach, about 25 miles north of that, and it's about an hour and a half east of Orlando.
Okay. Very good. So what all are you kind of seeing in the Florida market? Because it sure seems that you're having people coming in from other parts of the country, and your real estate market is changing a lot.
Yeah, so Port St. Lucie as a city, I used to live there since I was born. And so ever since I was a kid there, went to elementary school there, 2002, 2003. The population was, I have to look at the statistics on it, it was like 40,000. And what happened was in 2006, a developer came in and said, this is right by the beach. This is like undeveloped area. What they did is they started building homes. They decided this is the place where we're going to build homes, and we're going to make it. They made this little city called Traditions, and it was amazing. So they put a huge hospital there. They made like a little town square that made everything seem like it was the 50s. They put in a minor league baseball team for the New York Mets, which the New York Mets has fans from New York. And what do old people love to do? They love the warm weather, and they love the Mets, and they love baseball. So it attracted a bunch of elderly people to Florida, bringing in all their money, and they started building homes like crazy. So the population from 2003 till 2010 went from 40,000 to around 200,000. Huge population boom. So prices went up like crazy. It was literally insane. Well, 2008. Guess what happened? Everyone is buying these mortgages in 2008, all these older people, and they're boom, 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 boom. And 2008 happened, big real estate crash happened, the real estate cratered, probably the biggest it's ever been in Port St. Lucie. Like 50% of home values went down, and we're eventually going up. So we actually hit our peak from 2006 right now. So the real estate market, specifically where I am, is very niched out. But right now we're doing pretty well with that. But in the state of Florida, things are pretty good. We're always having people coming in and out. We have a lot of people coming from California, New York. And then we also have a pretty big population coming in from Brazil and Haiti, and always Cuba. But overall, the real estate market in Florida is pretty good. I can't really complain. There's always people coming in. It's not like in New York or Ohio where people are actually exiting it. Same thing you're having in Texas. There's so many people. Wherever you have a state with no state income tax, you're going to have people coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you kind of, I guess Florida and Texas are very similar in that regard. Could you kind of explain a bit more about, why no state income taxes is more appealing compared to other states?
Yeah, so first of all, Texas and Florida are very similar in two aspects. They're warm, and a lot of people speak Spanish. They have big Hispanic communities. So anything south of Palm Beach, anything probably south of, I'd say Houston maybe, or Dallas, a lot of people speak Spanish. I don't speak a lot of Spanish, but I can get through a little bit just living here. A lot of people love to immigrate into these two states. So a lot of people from Mexico into Texas, and then a lot of Cuba and Latin America loves to go to Miami, and they're working their way up north, which is great. There's a lot of good food here, but overall, it's a great market. So it's warm. People speak Spanish, so a lot of immigrants like to come here and start very entrepreneur-minded. But the state income tax, I believe there's only 8 states with no state income tax: Washington, Texas, Florida, New Hampshire, and then I believe Wyoming, and then Tennessee, but you got to pay like capital gains tax there. So we make most of our money like Texas off of tourism, and that's basically what pays our taxes. So we don't have state income tax. Our property taxes are a little higher, just like yours. But overall, if you don't spend, like if you don't have this crazy big property, you pay less in taxes, which is nice. So the biggest benefit of Texas and Florida is just old retirees coming in to harvest their money and to not pay an income tax. So that's the biggest one. It's just like, who wants to pay more in taxes? Seriously. So that's the biggest benefit, I would say.
Sure, sure, absolutely. So kind of transitioning to you mentioning how you work. You're the operations guy at Flip with Rick, right?
I'm basically everything. So I am operations wise. Rick's kind of not really in the business. Like I take care of everything. He kind of does the coaching more or less, but he's semi-retired, I would say. But everything's taken over basically with me, and then our employees and things like that. But overall, he's kind of out of it. He helps the people out with the coaching, and I basically run everything through him. Maybe I'll show him a check here and there, but he's out of it.
Okay. So are you working strictly with those wholesales or subject twos? Are there any other aspects of real estate that you're kind of dealing with in terms of deals?
Yeah, so we make most of our money here in Florida because we made a lot of money wholesaling. And what you figure out pretty quickly is if you actually buy the property, you have it at a deep discount, and then, well, okay, let me reverse back on this. So as a wholesaler, you put a property under contract at a deep discount. Let's say it's worth 100,000. Put it under contract for 60,000. What you do is you sell it to a cash buyer, which is someone that's willing to invest it or maybe flip the property, and you can only maybe get 80% of the value with a cash buyer because they need to make a profit too. So you're basically a middleman, and you can, if it's get for 60, you can sell it $80,000, make 20,000. But what if I actually buy this property with all my funds for 60,000, and I put it on the MLS and buy it to Susie and John that actually want to live in the house? They don't want to flip it and make money off of me. They'll pay a lot more money. So what happens is you actually make more money buying the property and then just putting it back on the market with minimal repairs, and you make a lot more money. So that's what we do. It's called wholetailing. So it's a retail wholesale. So we didn't patent that, but basically 80% of our deals are that. So what I'll do is buy the property, all cash, buy it in 7 days, and then put it on the market the next day. And we make a lot bigger profits than the average wholesaler in our market. So that is what we do mostly. Again, we do wholesale deals on deals that are like really slim margins. We don't lose money on any of our deals. So we do those two in my local market. Then I basically do virtual wholesaling in 3 other markets in the Southeast. And that's strictly wholesale, a little too risky to buy something out of state. And I'll go on appointments locally for us to get subject twos. And another exciting part is, I don't want to get too confusing with people, but we do lease options also, which is just part of creative financing. It's sort of like subject to, but it's if someone has a lot of equity. I can get to it for hours, but that's another aspect that we do in our business.
Okay, very good. So kind of reverting back to, what you called the wholetailing, right? Is you mentioned how you would have it, you would pay cash, you would have it for a short period of time. I'm assuming, do you have a crew on hand, a contractor that kind of, no?
No, so like I've said, wholetailing versus flipping is completely different. So if our ROI is best spent buying properties and selling it at like a larger volume of a rate than actually putting in the full repairs that it needs. So the average flip guy spends about $40,000 on their flip, and it takes about 3 to 4 months to do it. That's the average HGTV route. The problem is you put 40,000 into it, you might make 50 to 60,000 in additions. I mean, the ROI, the return on investment's not the best if I just put in the marketing. So what we do is we literally spend at most $3,000 on a flip, and we have individual guys that will help us on something. Like the last deal I just did, all we had to do was put a cleaning lady in there and just clean up the property and then put it back on the market. So we don't have a big crew or anything, just because within a week we put it back on the market.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I guess I'm sure you could go on a big spiel about it for a long time, but could you just kind of explain what lease options are?
Yeah, I love lease options. Subject twos are really good, but again, it gets a lot complicated. There's a lot of legal jargon in there that I don't want to include. But if you're going to get into subject two, you need a really, really good lawyer to help you out and just to write the contracts with it. But with lease options, you can be an 18-year-old kid that doesn't know much, but if he gets a lease option going, he can do it well. Subject to, you need to get a lawyer. Like that's why I say you need to make a little more money to do that. But lease options it's like, have you ever heard of Airbnb arbitrage?
No.
Okay, so It's sort of like that. So basically, it's like subleasing. You heard of subleasing?
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing. So with a lease option is, let's say, Aaron, you have that $100,000 property, but you own it free and clear. You have no mortgage on it. How am I going to buy it subject to? No, but let's say I ask you, hey, can I buy your house for 50 cents on the dollar? You're going to say no. So most wholesalers just wipe their hands and like, okay, it's just a listing, buy. What I do is, since I figure out they have a lot of equity and they actually want to sell it for a pretty good price, what I do is say, okay, Aaron, do you want to sell for 100,000 and it's worth 100,000? I said, sure. And they're like, okay. But I say, you gotta do one condition for me though. They're like, what? I'm gonna need to get payments on this. And that's where you actually flip the script on them. And they say, what do you mean payments? So basically the way I explain it to them is, what I do is I'll give you a down payment on the property. I'll give you payments every single month for 3 to 5 years. And at the end of that, I'll give you the lump sum at the end, and they'll pay you interest in between that. So basically you're the bank and I'm the actual person trying to buy it. Again, you're gonna have a lot of objections on that, but basically the way it works is you're buying it with payments and they keep the deed, they're the owner. What I basically am is I am a tenant for them, and I just basically pay rent every month. I give them my down payment, which is my first and last, you could say, in the beginning, and then I pay rent every single month. And then at the end of that, I'll pay a lump sum at the end, which is basically going to be my purchase price. So the way you make money off of that is every rent you actually pay is actually principal you're paying towards down, just like a mortgage. So I wish I could visually show it, but I can't really right now. So what you do is so you're paying, let's say, $100,000 is the price. You agree on the house. You give them $5,000. So at the end, it's $95,000 is a lump sum, then $5,000 is in the beginning, and I decide I'm going to pay him $800 a month. So what you basically do is you bring in a rent-to-own guy who can't qualify for a mortgage right now. He doesn't have the W-2, but he has a pretty good job. What he'll do is he'll give me $10,000 as a down payment. He'll pay me $1,100 a month. And at the end of that, because I'm giving him payment options, he'll give me $120,000 at the end of everything, which you can make money in between. So in that example, you're making $20,000, you make another $5,000. So you're making roughly $30,000 to $40,000 on a deal that you would have never gotten at all if you didn't offer that.
Sure, absolutely. So kind of, how do you know when you want to do a subject to, when you want to do a wholesale, when you want to do a lease option? Like are there specific things in a deal or a property that you're looking at that'll kind of tell you, okay, this is what it'll be?
Yes, I go through a checklist and a qualification. So I can share that with you right now. So basically it goes this: if you're interested in selling your property for cash, that is my demographic. If you want to list it and get the most money for it, I'm not your guy. I'm sorry. But if you want to sell it all cash, you don't go through a realtor, you don't want to pay anything, then I put you through my qualifications. So the number one thing is, hey, what's your motivation? Why do you want to sell? Is it repairs? Is it a job change? Is it something like that? That's what I really want to figure out with the person, because this is my little acquisitions hat. Second, I want to figure out if you got equity or not, because if there's not enough equity in the deal, then you're either going to go into creative financing or you're going to go under wholesale. So if the guy has lots of equity and he needs to sell it really quickly, I'll just basically try to buy it for 50, 60 cents on the dollar, then make my profit that way. If the guy's okay with that, then we're good. I always try to get the wholetail route. I'm always trying to buy a house 50, 60 cents on the dollar. If he's not okay with that, then I'll go to plan B. Plan B would be, are you willing to take payments on that? Either subject to, if you have no equity, or through payments on a lease option if you are having a lot of equity. I don't say lease option to a seller. Never say that. Just say payments. Lease option's a little scary for a seller. Same thing with subject to. Just say the word payments. And that's what we do. But overall, always go for the wholesale. The little creative financing, the wholetailing, it's nice and sexy, but maybe 5% of all your wholesale deals would be that.
Absolutely. Very good. So, it kind of sounds like those are the biggest three facets of what you're doing, is the wholesaling, the subject to, the lease options for the time being. what are you looking forward to in the future? What's kind of what are you looking to do?
Yeah, so we're looking to scale a little more. The only way we have a really big market share of what we do here in our little tiny market. So we can't really expand that any further. We can do a little bit more, but we're looking to expand the subject to part of our business pretty well. When when you have when a lot of property values start to go down, which we're going to assume we're going to take a little hit here in Florida, when the payments start happening and the evictions actually start rolling through. Right now here in Florida, I can personally evict somebody if I wanted to, but due to our current president, he actually has an eviction moratorium on properties that actually have federally backed loans. So all the properties that we own it all cash. We have no mortgage on it. So I can really just evict anyone I really want unless they're impacted with COVID, which I can go around that. Now, if I'm buying a property and let's say I have a FHA loan, I have a Fannie Mae loan, Freddie Mac, whatever it is, and it's government backed, I can't evict that person. And there's so many people wanting to get rid of the property or evict people and sell it and just get rid of the house because they need the money right now due to COVID. And they can't do it because there's a moratorium basically till, I believe it's June of next year. So June 2021, you can't get out of it. So once we start flooding evictions, there'll be a lot more properties on the market, and we'll have a lot more people that are interested in selling their property through payments because they owe too much money versus what the mortgage is. This was a nice little arbitrage thing we did back in 2010, Rick did. We're going to see it a lot more right now. So that's what we're really gearing up towards right now. And we're just trying to add a little more virtual markets here and there for wholesaling.
Sure, sure, absolutely. So would you say that most of your, I guess most of what you're doing is strictly virtual, but yet you're meeting people in person, or how does that look?
Yeah, so basically if you're within, I would say, an hour's driving distance of me, I'm going to go meet you. If you're outside of that, we're just going to lock you up over the phone and get a contract done virtually, which we can do pretty easy. So that's basically the way it works. So we got 5 virtual markets in Tennessee, Georgia, Michigan, and then North Carolina, South Carolina. Now we're looking a little more into Virginia, but and Ohio. So technically 6, but South Carolina is kind of weird right now. So I would say 5. So if you're outside of an hour driving distance, then it's a virtual deal for me.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, Zach, is there anything that you haven't spoken about that you really just want to hammer home?
Yeah, the one thing I can really hammer home to you guys is if you don't understand what wholesaling is, maybe you're watching Aaron's stuff because you're interested in rental properties, BRRRR method. Those are all great. Again, this is really what I do right now in my time right now, wholesaling real estate, flipping homes, and actually acquiring properties subject to, this is all my active income. This is what I do to actually make money. So it's completely separate than what you're doing if you're actually trying to build wealth and try to get more wealth. That's another that's for another time and day. But this is basically for an active income. So if you're trying to do this and you think this is all passive, it's not. It's a lot of work. You actually have to physically go to these properties and get really good deals and physically go on the phone with sellers. This isn't some Shopify, Amazon, FBA, drop shipping thing where you can just click a button and the money comes in, and that's all fake. But it's a lot of hard work. What I do seems all sexy and nice, but you got to put your 10,000 hours of just hours into that craft of doing it, and you'll do well. But again, I think real estate wholesaling is the best way for someone under the age of 25 to become a millionaire all day.
Absolutely. Yeah, very well said. Well, Zach, maybe someone's watching, they're interested in what you have to say, your great explanation of wholesaling subject to lease options. Where can we find you?
Yeah, so we have a real estate basically education company. It's called Flip with Rick. So Rick started that in 2010. And what we do is we're not like these big coaching gurus. Like, we have one coaching program. It's 10 people max, and that's what we do. And we're already maxed out on that. So we don't sell anything that way. We have a little bit of coaching products here and there, but that's kind of, we don't promote that at all. What we do is we just give value for people. All I do is just help people start real estate wholesaling, virtual wholesaling, build wealth, rentals. I help everyone. If it comes to real estate and making money, that's what I do. I have a YouTube channel called Flip with Rick. I go live in that channel every Friday for about 2 hours, just answering thousands of people's questions. Always come and join me. It's called Flip with Rick. Basically, I also do about 2 videos every single week where I actually help people and I just share my story. We're doing a couple of vlogs. We're doing on a couple thousand, like making about 40,000 on a deal that we did. I documented the whole thing, but that's it. So it's Flip with Rick on YouTube. You can join me on Facebook. I'm Zach Ginn on Facebook, and I just document my journey and just help. I don't sell people. I just give, and that's what I do.
Beautiful. Well said. Well, Zach, we've kind of run the gamut there. I mean, we've talked about wholesaling, lease options, subject to, just kind of getting started with wholesaling, and sure learned a heck of a lot about you. So I really enjoyed that.
Sweet. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.